I apologize for not making videos on like a lot of current events. I've mostly been streaming and giving my thoughts on things during streams, so it's like, well, and I have my website, and I was doing so many things. It really was weird not making video content for a while. I wanted to like take a break and do other things, and I want to continue doing those other things, but I do want to get back into making regular video content for you guys. That PS5 event, though, like I did a live reaction, I did a write-up on my website. Do I really need to make a short video telling everyone that it sucked? Like, anyone who tuned in to watch me talk about this knows that I didn't like the event. Anyone who went to blackcatbooks.org knows I didn't like the event. Anybody who follows me at all knows I didn't like the event. So, like, do I really need to make a short YouTube video just pronouncing that PlayStation is completely dead and irrelevant? Like, it's getting really, really difficult for me to even like muster up the anger anymore, because it's like, well, I have other things I need to be doing. I have things I need to do. I have other outlets. I have other places that talk about this, but I do want to continue doing it for you guys. Like, it needs to be said that PlayStation is basically a dead and irrelevant brand. Like, we really are at the point where people are buying a brand new piece of hardware for a bunch of indie games and ports. Like, ports that are of games that came out on the PS3, in the case of Grand Theft Auto 5, and for the most part, like, a lot of the ports are coming from PS4. a lot of the games are getting cross-released on PS4. Like, why should anyone go out and buy a PS5 this holiday season? Like, when you really just look at it, when you really just look at the product and what it's offering, like the new visuals, the new games, what does it offer that a PS4 doesn't? Like, this isn't even about the other consoles anymore. Like, yeah, Nintendo's been better for years. Yeah, PC gaming has always been better. Yeah, like, mobile gaming is probably better. Yeah, there's so many other things you could be doing other than owning a PlayStation, right? It's not even about that. What does the PS5 do that the PS4 couldn't handle? And the answer is basically nothing. Like, we are at the point where new PlayStations don't have a new level of graphical fidelity. Like, we're at the point now where graphics really can't get any better. And as a result, instead of judging games based on their graphics, people are instead going to have to talk about actual gameplay. And as it so happens, Nintendo is the company that dominates with the actual games. Like, it's remarkable how they can pump out a remake of a 30-year-old IP that looks like it was made out of claymation, right? I'm playing through this right now. This is why it was sitting out in front of me. They can make a game that looks like this, right? The Legend of Zelda: Link's Awakening Switch. You know, a remake of a 30-year-old GameCube, a Game Boy game. I said GameCube, what the fuck? A 30-year-old GameCube game doesn't exist yet. A 30-year-old Game Boy game. You know, they could just give it a new art style, make some minor QLL adjustments, sell this game to a new audience, and have it be wildly, wildly successful. Like, I believe this has sold like over 4 million units, which is pretty insane for a remake of this caliber. Meanwhile, Square Enix comes out with Final Fantasy VII-R, completely changes everything, completely ruins everything. They make it episodic. They pull all these shenanigans, and it can't manage. Like, I don't know, how much does Final Fantasy VII-R cost? Like, around that much, right? Like, around 4 million units, I think. It's significantly less than the original Final Fantasy VII, significantly less than other big Nintendo games that came out around that same period. Animal Crossing alone, I think, has sold more than Final Fantasy VII-R, The Last of Us Part 2, and Ghost of Tsushima combined, which is just pure ridiculous if you really think about it. We're at the point now where graphics don't really matter. Like, we're at the point now where, like, okay, if you want graphics, you play Breath of the Wild. You play the big Nintendo games, right? And meanwhile, if you want like something for a more specific audience, you know, RPGs, Nintendo, Life Sims, Animal Crossing, Rune Factory, like Nintendo, RPGs, like Disgaea, like Nintendo, right? Like, there's no benefit to owning a PlayStation over a Nintendo console anymore. Like there's no reason to upgrade to a PS5. None at all. Like, and like, you know, Horizon Zero Dawn, you know, one of the most forced fake new IPs I've ever seen in my life. Like, you know, one of the one of the like the go-to examples, right, of how nobody actually likes PlayStation exclusives. That's getting a sequel, and it's being released for PS4 as well. Like, PlayStation 5, I feel like, is just the next step forward from the PS4 Pro. Like, that's probably going to be what they're going to do from now on. Like, they're gonna take like the PS5, the PS3 or the PS4 model, give it up. They're gonna come out with a new console, give it a Pro edition like 3 years later, and then like release an improved model of that. Call it like the PS6 or whatever. Like, what we're seeing right now is the industry trying to transition gaming hardware into like cell phone like upgrade schedule. So they don't want to make major upgrades or changes to their hardware. They just want to like introduce like incremental upgrades, like with just minor power up things, right? But as a result of that, like, there's no reason when you do it that way. There's no reason for most games to not continue to be available on PlayStation 4, Xbox One, and especially Nintendo Switch. Like, it's going to be harder and harder for developers, especially smaller ones, to justify not supporting Nintendo hardware, because that's where the games are. That's where the gamers are. That's where people who actually like playing niche games, like games of all stripes, right? Like all colors, right? Like all games matter under Nintendo's umbrella. Like, here's the PlayStation thing, I think. Here's the problem. They tried to make everything they did into a Final Fantasy VII thing. Like, they tried coming out and turning everything into, like, some big phenomenon. And now, when they don't have that, it's like the Hollywood problem. When they don't have that, there's no appeal. Like, if they don't have the thing that everyone is talking about, like everyone wants to play, like nobody wants to play it. Like, it's entirely just based on this idea that like I gotta play this thing because everyone else is playing it. That's the PlayStation audience. Meanwhile, Nintendo fans are discovering old games all the time, right? Like I'm sure like in a couple of days when Donkey Kong Country 2 comes out on Nintendo Switch Online, a bunch of people are going to play this for the first time ever, right? And I've been playing that on my copy, like on stream. It's been wonderful. One of my favorite games of all time, for sure. More and more people are going to fall in love with that game, and by extension, let's look at the Donkey Kong series in general. Like, how many of those games have become obscure? You know what I mean? Like, yeah, everybody knows the original. Everyone knows Returns, I think. Tropical Freeze came out on Switch. I'm sure it has an audience, but like they could re-release like Donkey Kong Country 3, Donkey Kong 64. They could release shit like Jungle Beat, Jungle Climber. Like Donkey Kong, I guess, maybe some more spin-offs. Like, again, once you sort of realize that Nintendo sequels are better, like they handle their franchises so much better, like, there's really no going back. Like, really, it's remarkable. I have a copy of like Secret of Mana on my shelf on a Nintendo Switch. Like, eventually I'm gonna play this thing, and eventually I think I'm gonna be a fan. And I'm not sure if anybody would do that on a PlayStation console. Like, who do you know who buys like a Ratchet and Clank collection like 20 years after it came out? Like, holy shit, this Ratchet and Clank is so good. Like, nobody does that. It's just it's a franchise that kids play and then kind of forget about. You know what I mean? It doesn't stick with you the way that Nintendo games do, the way that Zelda does, the way Mario does, the way like Wario Land does. Like, looking at this lineup of games, these DLC expansions, these ports of PS4 games, what exactly is there for me, a gamer, to buy and play that would only be available on PlayStation hardware? And they're trying to sell people on this idea of like, oh, we have a PlayStation Plus collection where you could subscribe and you get all these games for free. Like, aren't all those games already available on Game Pass? Like, you're basically just doing Game Pass again with a bunch of like shitty PlayStation 4 exclusives that nobody cares about. You know, like The Last of Us, God of War, Bloodborne, a bunch of third-party games that I know are available on other platforms. Like, they're talking about Mortal Kombat X. Like, who doesn't already? Here's the thing. Here's why I think Nintendo Switch Online is eventually going to demolish the Game Pass and the PS Plus thing. the Nintendo Switch Online are games that people actually want to play. You know what I mean? Like they have like the real classics, the 30-year-old games that you can't just buy on consoles you own today. Usually, they have like as the library grows more and more, as those games stay on there, as more and more games like ActRaiser, Soul Blazer, Donkey Kong Country 2. Things like that start releasing on these consoles, and more people start discovering them. More and more will Nintendo Switch Online start to grow and expand, and I think Nintendo's method of sort of selling modern games on their online service is actually better, right? How they're trying to sell like Disgaea 5 actually. They just advertised that Nintendo Switch Online is offering a free download of Disgaea 5. So you can just download the game off the service, play it for like 5 days, and then if you like it, you can buy the full game. You can buy the game. That I think is going to be very, very successful for them. Because like keeping it limited, like keeping it like having weird shit, like weird fringe shit, like just go be free for a limited amount of time. Like as opposed to just giving like this wide range of titles that can be overwhelming to most consumers. Like people are gonna try it. Like people are gonna try like every game as they become available on Nintendo Switch Online, and it's gonna explode eventually. Like right now, Nintendo Switch Online is a phenomenal service. The media doesn't want to admit that. Again, we've talked about this before, how the gaming media was intent on like downplaying Nintendo Switch Online. They're at the point now where they can't really call it a bad deal, but they're not really acknowledging it's the best one either. So it's probably going to be another couple of years before Nintendo Switch Online really blows up, but when it does, it's going to be over. Like, Game Pass isn't going to be able to compete. EA isn't going to be able to compete. Like, once they start putting out stuff like, N64 classics, Ocarina of Time, like Pilot Wing 64, like Pokemon Stadium, Pokemon Snap, maybe the original. Like, the stuff that people our age grew up with, right? As opposed to, like, the 40-year-old... the games that every 40-year-old collector has. GameCube classics, I think, might actually be a big one. Like, how big was Super Mario Sunshine? Like, it was on Super Mario 3D All-Stars. Like, it was wildly, wildly successful, right? I'm seeing people play it on Twitter all the time, right? It's phenomenal, right? Like, people are just playing this 18-year-old game because it's legitimately well made and fun, and I don't think like Detroit Become Human is going to be able to compete with that. I don't. Like, I was looking at this list of PS Plus games and I was just like, holy fucking shit, this isn't good. It's a bunch of games that people have already owned already. You know what I mean? Like every major PlayStation 4 game. Like it's getting worse. Like at this point, like it used to be a thing. Like wait a couple of months and you could buy new PlayStation games for like $20, like with no issues. Like if you just don't buy it day one, it's gonna sink in price like really, really quickly. Now, if you're subscribed to PS Plus, you don't even have to wait for that. Like you just like have to subscribe to their service and wait for them to make every single game they've ever put out free. It's not gonna pan out for them. I expect their sales to really tank actually. Right now, I think they're desperately trying to keep up with Nintendo, with Xbox Game Pass, and PC gaming, and I don't think they're going to be relevant for much longer. Like I think it's basically over. Like their carefully constructed narrative that Naughty Dog is one of the best game developers in the world, dead in the water. Nobody outside of like the most corrupt, nepotistic game journalists. Sony dick-sucking game journalists really believe that. You know what I mean? Like, everybody knows Naughty Dog is shit. They won't be able to brag about hardware sales. They won't be able to continue... They basically won't be able to continue their narrative that they're the most popular in the world. And without that, they have absolutely nothing.